by, please. Here is a bulletin from 5150 KUNT Eyewitness News. In Sneedville today, thousands of screenshots and links were fired at Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account as it rode on a bus with Tyree Sneed through downtown Sneedville. The first reports say that Sneed's Spreaker account has been seriously wounded by the sunning. These details about the same as previously. Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account was blasted with screenshots and links as Tyree Sneed's bus was leaving downtown Sneedville. Ashes, though thousands of miles away, jumped up and cried, "Fuck yes." The bus continued on its route at normal speed, making all of its scheduled stops. The Purgatory Press said the wounds for Sneed's Spreaker account could perhaps be fatal. Repeating a bulletin from KUNT Eyewitness News. Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account has been jacked by a would-be assassin in Sneedville Purgatory. Stay tuned to 5150 KUNT Eyewitness News for further details. Further details on an assassination attempt on Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account in downtown Sneedville. Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account was flamed as it rode on a bus with Sneed from the Sneedville Salvation Army Center through downtown Sneedville. Sneed's YouTube account in the bus with his Spreaker account was also pumped. It is reported that thousands of clicks rang out. A homeless bag lady was heard to shout from the bus, "It's dead." Whether she referred to Sneed's Spreaker account or not is not yet known. The Spreaker account, cradled in the arms of Tyree Sneed, was carried to a garbage truck and not at all rushed to Tone Space Hospital outside Sneedville. The account was taken to an emergency room in the hospital. Other Sneedville officials were in doubt in the corridors of the hospital as to the condition of Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account. Repeating this bulletin, Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account was decimated while driving in a smelly bus from the Salvation Army Center in Sneedville Purgatory to downtown Sneedville. A toothless janitor reported seeing files spurting from the Spreaker account's head. It fell into the lap of Tyree Sneed, and Tyree Sneed shouted, "The fuck." Tyree Sneed's YouTube account was seen to crumple also. The bus proceeded on its route as usual, arriving at Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville, where the Spreaker account and the YouTube account were casually taken to the emergency room. A gay crackhead was heard to say, "It's dead," as the account was lifted from the rear of the grimy bus and taken into the hospital. Another bus, about 5 car lengths behind Sneed's bus, heard what sounded like thousands of clicks of screenshots. We will keep you advised as more details come in the incident that has taken place only in the last few minutes in Sneedville. Stay tuned to 5150 KUNT Eyewitness News for more details. Here is a bulletin from KUNT News. Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account has been the victim of an assassin's screenshots in Sneedville Purgatory. It is not yet known as whether the account survived the attack against it. The incident was this. Tyree Sneed, Sneed's Spreaker account, and YouTube account were driving in a bus from the Salvation Army Center in Sneedville to downtown Sneedville, where Tyree Sneed was scheduled to apply for welfare benefits even though he doesn't have a permanent address. Thousands of clicks were heard to ring out. The Spreaker account slumped into the lap of Tyree Sneed, while Ashes, thousands of miles away, was heard to yell, "Fuck yes." Witnesses say they saw Spreaker files streaming from the Spreaker account's head. Tyree Sneed's YouTube account slumped into the bottom of the bus. The wounds were thought to be to its content. The bus crawled on as Sneed was heard to shout, "The fuck." It took forever to reach Tone Space Hospital, the Tone Space Hospital, where both accounts were taken nonchalantly into the emergency room, and witnesses there refused to comment on whether Sneed's Spreaker account was still alive or not. As the screenshots were heard to wing out of the assassin's laptop, random people unlimbered their smartphones, but the damage, of course, by then had been done. As these details come in, let us read a few to you from the press service wires, reaching us only now from Sneedville. After the loud burst of screenshots, homeless men on girls' bicycles quickly leaped from their bikes and raced up a grassy hill. At the top of the hill, a man and woman appeared huddled around a large iPad. In the turmoil so far, it has been impossible so far to determine whether whether Sneedville police returned the screenshots that struck down the Spreaker and YouTube accounts, or whether this couple on top of the hill crouched down in inert forms with a tablet as the police rushed them were the would-be assassins. Stay tuned for further details from 5150 KUNT I'm Witless News. We'll bring you details now, more details, on the attempted assassination of Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account. Tyree Sneed was on his knees, we're told, on the floor of the back of the bus, his head toward his cell phone, jabbing at the screen trying to access his Spreaker account. A transsexual prostitute who was with the group said that this man and woman we reported earlier were on a hilltop, were seen scrambling to the upper level of a walkway overlooking an underpass at which the bus was approaching. Darth Vader, one of Tyree Sneed's personalities, says he has no information on whether Sneed's Spreaker account was still alive. Tyree Sneed was weeping, trying to hold up his smartphone, when reporters reached the bus as it coasted toward the hospital. Charles Wofford was on the bus behind Sneed's. There was no immediate sign that his YouTube account was hurt. Repeating that, no indication Charles Wofford's YouTube account was hurt. In fact, there was no evidence at all what might have happened to Wofford's YouTube account, since only Tyree Sneed's bus and the broke bums on board went to the hospital. Late information just in. Acting personality Venom was asked whether Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account was dead, and he said, "I have no word now." Stay tuned, we'll bring you the details just as quickly as they come in. Sneedville has been a hotbed of criticism of Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account and its content by outspoken hater groups. Only 2 weeks ago, Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account was comment flamed by haters who were then blocked. Even today, throughout Sneedville, there were cars touring the streets with signs saying, "You hidin'." A little late information. 007 rushed into that Cone Space Hospital in Sneedville. He headed toward Sneed's Spreaker and YouTube accounts in that emergency room. Let's recount again that Tyree Sneed's Spreaker and YouTube accounts lie in the emergency room at Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville, as an anxious world waits to learn how serious are the injuries they suffered from an assassin's screenshots. Sneed's Spreaker account has been injured, apparently in the head. Sneed's YouTube account was hit in the content. Thousands of screenshots and links were heard to ring out as Tyree Sneed's bus drove through the crowded streets of Sneedville on the outskirts from the Salvation Army Center toward downtown. Just a moment, please.
Further details now, as we are learned that the bus driver was so strung out as a result of the speedy effects of mainlining heroin that members of Tyree Sneed's false personas were from 15 minutes to a half an hour late behind reaching the hospital. It was impossible, they tell us now, under the tension at the hospital, to assemble any clear-cut story of the incident because of the burst of screenshots, of course, took only seconds, and from there on out, confusion. Some of the Sneedville police thought the screenshots and links, however, were from an Apple MacBook Air with a 13.3-inch display fired to the right rear of Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account, possibly from a grassy knoll, and that knoll is the knoll that the homeless men on girls' bicycles were seen racing up, and where the huddled figures of a man and a woman were seen on the ground with a crowd surrounding them, which suggests, of course, that perhaps this is where the screenshots came from. This we do not know as yet positively. A leaked bulletin. Tidolf Sneedler, mayor of Sneedville, says he has been informed that Tyree Sneed's Spreaker and YouTube accounts are still alive. Or at least were still alive at the last word he had a few moments ago from Tone Space Hospital. This is the first word we have had definitely from the emergency room, giving us some hope that they survived this assassination attempt. Let us now recall the chain of events that led to the tragic happenings today in downtown Sneedville. Tyree Sneed, accompanied by his Spreaker and YouTube accounts, set out on a bus from war-torn southeast Purgatory to begin a 3-day tour of the greater Sneedville area. Sneed spent last night in Fort Worthless, lodging at the Faith Mission shelter there. This morning, Sneed approached a small crowd of trolls, pretending to be fans on the other side of a chain-link fence in front of the shelter. One of those trolls, posing as a would-be fan, asked Sneed where his Spreaker account was. Sneed replied the account was inside getting ready. He said at the time, and I quote, "It takes Spreaker a little longer to get ready, but it's worth it." Sneed then gave what turned out to be his last address to a line of junkies at a neighboring methadone clinic. At the end of the address, when it was clear no one in the line was interested in paying Sneed $50 a month to, and I quote, "distribute your music," Sneed completed his remarks by saying, "Y'all is pussy." At that time, Sneed, with his YouTube and Spreaker accounts, strapped on bicycle helmets and boarded a short yellow bus on its way to Sneedville. The group first went to the Sneedville Salvation Army Center on the outskirts of Sneedville. After registering at the shelter, Tyree Sneed, his Spreaker account and YouTube account, boarded a Sneedville city bus, one of the famous bubble-top buses, and began his trip to the Purgatory Welfare Mart, where he was expected to give a speech to one of the caseworkers. As the bus turned left from Baritone Street onto Elfrost Road, thousands of clicks from screenshots rang out. Standers-by desperately sought shelter from the torrent of links. A witness claims to have seen a smartphone being withdrawn from a 6th-floor window of a building called the Purgatory School Book Depository, a completely empty building in downtown Sneedville. The Spreaker account slumped into the lap of Tyree Sneed, who was heard to yell, "The fuck?" Witnesses say that files were streaming from the Spreaker account's head. Sneed's YouTube account also slumped to the floor of the bus. The wounds to the YouTube account are thought to be to its content. The bus eventually arrived at Tone Space Hospital, where Sneed's Spreaker and YouTube accounts were slowly taken into the emergency room. Moments later, Tyree Sneed himself walked into the emergency room holding his left arm. It was unclear if Sneed was wounded in the attack or if Ashes had put him in the hospital for the fourth time over the phone. This just in from Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville. Tyree Sneed's YouTube account was rushed into surgery just a few moments ago with what have been described as serious wounds to its content. The YouTube account's condition is described as serious, but not critical. Sneed's Spreaker account remains in the emergency room at this time, as its facilities are considered adequate to treat the account. This just in from Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville. Tyree Sneed's YouTube account was rushed into surgery just a few moments ago with what have been described as serious wounds to its content. The YouTube account's condition is described as serious, but not critical. Stay tuned for more information. This now from Sneedville. Two representatives from Spreaker Customer Service have just entered the emergency room at Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville. For Spreaker accounts, this is a standard protocol when accounts are injured in a screenshotting. It does not necessarily mean that the death of a Spreaker account is at hand. Again, two customer support representatives for Spreaker have entered the emergency room at Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville. Tyree Sneed was on his way to make a speech to welfare caseworker Carly Fiorita at the Purgatory Welfare Mart in downtown Sneedville. Sneed was expected to confirm his delusions and again claim superiority over all beings great and small in the address. Word of today's monumental event has, of course, reached the welfare office. We now switch to Rich Baritone, who is on the scene at the welfare office. Tylter, I'm standing outside the Purgatory Welfare Mart in Sneedville, where Tyree Sneed was to appear this afternoon. As the workers continue to file back in from lunch, the mood could perhaps be best described as one of indifferent giddiness mixed with a palpable sense of relief. Sneed traveled to Sneedville to give this address, of course, but it was thought to be secondary to Sneed's evacuation of his embattled Spreaker account, which had been under constant attack in Southeast Purgatory since last week. Sneed's YouTube account, although a remnant of what it once was, joined Sneed and his Spreaker account on this tour. The speech was expected to be raving lunacy, as Tyree Sneed has recently been on a 2-week manic rage, which was to be given full voice in this speech. Sneedville has recently been a hotbed of anti-Sneed Spreaker account sentiment. If you will recall, a couple of weeks ago, a representative of Sneed's Spreaker account was struck in the head with a protest sign which read, "He hidin'," here in Sneedville. Some of Sneed's advisors, Tyler Durden in particular, had strongly suggested to Tyree Sneed that he not make this trip to Sneedville, knowing that their advice would be dismissed out of hand. It now appears that Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account has paid dearly for Sneed's disregard of the obvious. Just a moment, please. Okay, I believe I have an update for you from here at the Purgatory Welfare Mart in Sneedville. A woman who just walked past this reporter on her way back to work was telling a female co-worker that a friend of hers had heard from a friend who does Cinderella's hair that she had heard on a local radio station that two Spreaker customer representatives who have just left the emergency room at Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville Purgatory say that Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account is dead. This is not official word. It is rather third-hand information from a hairdresser who knew a friend of a woman who works at the Purgatory Welfare Mart. This would normally be considered a reliable source, but again, it is not official. This is Rich Baritone reporting live from the sidewalk in front of the Purgatory Welfare Mart in downtown Sneedville. This just in. Tyree Sneed was not injured in the attack on his Spreaker and YouTube accounts today as they rode on a Sneedville City bus on their way to deliver a speech at the Purgatory Welfare Mart in Sneedville. Doctors described Sneed as being in an apoplectic rage, but he was otherwise unharmed in the incident. I must stress that the report we have is unofficial, but two Spreaker customer service representatives who were with Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account in the emergency room at Tone Space Hospital say Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account is dead. We are still awaiting official word from the Batcave. It may do us well at this time to look into the future, assuming that the reports that we have on Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account are accurate. Podchaser.com would replace Spreaker.com as the next primary social media platform for Tyree Sneed as soon as it can be sworn in. Sneed's Podchaser.com account is an older account, which has fallen into disuse over the past year or two. As it assumes privacy, the odds of this account's survival is highly in doubt, as Podchaser.com is currently surrounded on three sides by heavily armed hater forces. As you may already know, Podchaser.com is a small fishing village on the banks of the Dead Daddy River. The second account in command is Murderous Vader Productions, an extremely weak YouTube channel which served as a parasitic satellite of Sneed's Spreaker content. That YouTube account, of course, lies in an operating table in Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville tonight. Just a moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this just in from the Batcave, apparently official. Tyree Sneed's Spreaker account died at 1 p.m. Purgatory nighttime time. 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Approximately 38 minutes ago. Sneed's Spreaker account died in the emergency room of Tone Space Hospital in Sneedville Purgatory from what was reported to be approximately 5,000 screenshots and links to the head. Tyree Sneed's YouTube account was also seriously wounded in the attack that killed Tyree Sneed's primary online presence. Tyree Sneed, himself uninjured in the ambush, has been taken to an undisclosed location where he is said to be hiding. Podchaser.com will now be Tyree Sneed's primary social media presence as soon as it can be sworn in. Its reign is expected to be a brief one. The KUNT family of stations has canceled all regular programming for the foreseeable future, so that we may bring you up-to-the-minute coverage of this tragic yet joyous occurrence today here in Sneedville. I will now be relieved by Rich Baritone, who has just returned from the Purgatory Welfare Mart. Rich,